lot of Americans are upset and think it's a slap in the face that Toyota decided to bring a watered-down, dumbed-down Land Cruiser to America. I'm talking about the new Land Cruiser that's coming to America soon. Now, it's important to note that Toyota didn't really stop making the Land Cruiser in America. Instead, they decided not to bring the new Land Cruiser, the real Land Cruiser, known as the Land Cruiser 300, when they developed it and released it 2 years ago. So the new Land Cruiser coming to the USA is based on a new Land Cruiser that was released 2 years ago in the world market. This is now a dumbed down, watered down version of that Americans are getting. Today we're going to dig in a little bit deeper about some of the things Toyota had to remove from the Land Cruiser 300 to bring it to America to be sold as the American version Land Cruiser. All right, let's jump right into it. The first misconception is this Land Cruiser coming to America is just simply the Land Cruiser Prado in the world market. And a lot of international viewers are saying that this is the Prado that they're bringing. We've always had the Prado. That's the smaller, cheaper Land Cruiser. And the fact is that that's not the case anymore. The Land Cruiser Prado is essentially dead. This GX is based on the Land Cruiser Prado. But the Land Cruiser Prado was always a short wheelbase Land Cruiser. Just like you have a Jeep that has a long wheelbase, a Jeep Wrangler, and then you have a short wheelbase Jeep Wrangler. The shorter wheelbase is arguably better to off-road in. The Land Cruiser Prado in the world market was never a watered down Land Cruiser. It was a short wheelbase Land Cruiser, and most importantly, it was fully featured. They didn't remove or cherry pick features from the Land Cruiser Prado. They left them all in there. It was a Land Cruiser just with a shorter wheelbase. Now the new Land Cruiser coming to America is on the same platform as the full-size Land Cruiser 300. That means the wheelbase is exactly the same, roughly 112 inches as the full-size Land Cruiser. So this new Land Cruiser is no longer a short wheelbase Land Cruiser. It has the same size, especially the wheelbase, as the full-size Land Cruiser, which incidentally has the same wheelbase as the previous full-size Land Cruiser, the Land Cruiser 200. So the Land Cruiser Prado, this is not, okay? Because the wheelbase is exactly the same, and the overall body dimensions, give or take, are the same. Yes, the approach and departure angle is a little bit more improved on this new Land Cruiser coming to America. But the most important thing, that wheelbase is a full-on, full-size Land Cruiser wheelbase. So it's not a little mini Land Cruiser anymore. Now we're going to discuss a lot of features that they took off of the Land Cruiser 300 to bring it here to America. Now, in order for anybody to understand this that's not familiar with Land Cruisers, you got to understand that these things that I'm going to list are marginal, but they add up to something huge. In fact, what a Land Cruiser is a subjective collection of marginal off-road and on-road improvements, and you stack those up, and it creates this, quote, Land Cruiser experience. Some of them are objective, some of them are subjective, but most people agree that all these super duper extra fancy features that Toyota Land Cruisers are known for add up to this Land Cruiser experience. The first and most unforgivable thing that Toyota is not bringing to America on the new Land Cruiser is EKDSS. In fact, they cut the system in half and they're only bringing over the front EKDSS system, omitting the rear for cost savings. What is EKDSS? A sway bar disconnect. Toyota in the past has called it EKDSS, which is frankly a poor name. Their new name, front sway bar disconnect, or simply a sway bar disconnect, is a much better name. On this GX 460, the front and rear sway bars disconnect through the EKDSS system. That gives you maximum articulation off-road. The new Land Cruiser will only do that on the front. That's it. It's a downgrade from the previous Land Cruisers and Land Cruiser Prados that have had a front and rear sway bar disconnect. In my opinion, that's the most unforgivable thing, because the whole point of Land Cruiser, of course, is to go off-road, and you want maximum articulation on the front and rear. To omit that on the rear is to miss out on something. Now some will say, well, so what? Who cares? We don't need it. It's got enough articulation anyway. You can never have enough articulation off-road. Have you ever been high-centered off-road? I have. Have you ever almost been high-centered off-road? I have too. Climate that they're not used to. Look at these big ruts. It's gonna be fun. Yeah. Oh, get that. Don't high-center. Uh-oh. High center, I swear. Woo! Almost high center. There. Okay. Whoa. Okay. See that big rut? Does that show up? I should have walked that. My mistake. But thankfully it was steep enough and I didn't high center enough. And when I say high center, let's zoom in here and I'll show you what I just almost look that high, but it is high. And that's what did it. So I straddled that when I should have went one side or the other, but it didn't look too bad. So anyway, let's try again and be glad we didn't get stuck there. And the interesting part is when I was almost high-centered, what got me out of that situation without having to break out the shovel and start digging is the fact that the rear EKDSS, that suspension articulation, even though I was high-centered on a rock, that rear articulation had those rear tires drooping down that much more to where I could actually drive out of it. So what would have been the end of my off-roading day was saved by was saved by KDSS. It saved the day. You can never have enough off-road articulation. That's the name of the game. And it's crazy that Toyota omitted that. Now, Toyota knows this because it was put on their flagship Landcruiser 300, and they have promos bragging and boasting all about it, and they sneakily took that away on this new Landcruiser 250 coming to America. The point of this video series about what's missing from the Landcruiser coming to America is in the light and context of a lot of press event NPCs that are simply going to events and regurgitating what Toyota is feeding them. And they're not really digging into what's been omitted from this Landcruiser and what that means to people who are passionate about off-roading or want to get into off-roading, or who have no intention to off-road at all and just want that, quote, Landcruiser experience. So the intention here is to be as frank and honest as possible, not simply regurgitate a spec sheet that's been fed to me. Moving on, let's cover some stuff that's missing from the Landcruiser coming to America. The Auto MTS is not coming. First of all, you can get MTS on the new Landcruiser coming to America if you get the higher trim one, but the base level is not going to give you MTS at all. Furthermore, if you get MTS on the higher trim, you're not getting the new Auto MTS. And that has sensors that essentially read the road camera, between the cameras and the radar sensors, will actually read the terrain and adjust your MTS automatically. Not only will it adjust the MTS or multi-terrain select automatically on the fly, it will also adjust the shocks as well, which we're going to talk about in a second. That's another feature that's missing. But you're not going to get that Auto MTS feature that Toyota is so proud of. Now, some people might think, oh, that's a gimmick. Well, remember what I said in the beginning. This is not a gimmick. It works. The system is real. The system has been tested. And the system has gotten a lot of people out of trouble. But most importantly, it's one of those marginal things that add up to a phenomenal and top-tier off-road experience. That Auto MTS is not going to be on your American Landcruiser. Front locker. The Landcruiser 300 was designed with a front locker. The new Landcruiser coming to America, they omitted that front locker. Now, the argument could be made that most Landcruisers in most markets omitted lockers years ago. In fact, 26 years ago, with the Landcruiser 200, in most markets, they took off the front and rear lockers and replaced them with A-Track. This GX460 does not have lockers, and A-Track is Toyota's substitution for lockers. Now, this is a source of contention, blah, 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 but the fact of the matter is A-Track is a phenomenal system. It's poorly marketed, like EKDSS or KDSS doesn't scream sway bar disconnect, which is what it should have been called. Nor does A-Track scream what it actually is, which is brake locking differential or brake locker. Okay, I need to come down first, get some more torque. I don't even know if this is a trail anymore. That's A-Track doing her thing. Woo! Now I'm gonna walk this. And pray and pray and pray to the A-Track gods. This part here, this is the one I'm most afraid of. But you can see it's steep. So anyway, the reason why I'm back up here again is to pick my line, because this is definitely the spot. So see that? This big section of rocks is what I need to get by 4-low first gear. Let's do it. Let's do it. Come on, A-Track. Go slow, go slow. It will lock the front and rear axles just like a locker automatically, and the system is simply phenomenal. So why did Toyota put front lockers and rear lockers on their new Landcruiser 300? The simple answer is to shut everybody up who'd never understood A-Track to begin with. It's a losing battle in Toyota's opinion. They've had A-Track on for over 26 years, and the vast majority of people just don't get it. They still scream, I need a locker, this, that, and the other. So for marketing reasons, they put on a front and rear locker on the Landcruiser 300 to kind of shut people up and provide them with that redundant system. Now, whether a locker is important to you, locker versus A-Track, blah, 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 that's up for you to decide. I'm not saying which one's right or wrong or better or this. The point is, Toyota on their Landcruiser 300 put those front and rear lockers there to give you, again, everything. Again, those marginal things that add up to this whole entire package. You're not getting that front locker. They omitted it. Another interesting thing is on the Landcruiser 300, it has hydraulic power steering. The new Landcruiser coming to America has EPS or electronic power steering. Now, anybody could argue which one's better. Hydraulic has more feel. Electronic is more fuel efficient and can vary some things, blah, 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 blah. The point is, they're different. And interestingly, the GX550, the Lexus GX550, is not going to get the hydraulic power steering that's on the Landcruiser 300. Instead, the Lexus GX550 is going to get the same US spec Landcruiser power steering, the electronic power steering. The next thing they got rid of is the turn assist. So the Landcruiser 300 in the world market was engineered with turn assist. Now, turn assist is not a gimmick. It will brake the inside wheel in the direction you're turning, the inside rear wheel, to basically let you power drift or power slide or basically pull a sharp turn off-road. Now, if you've ever been off-road or you do a lot of off-roading, 3-point, 4-point, 10-point turns are part of what you do, and it gets annoying. So the turn assist will brake that wheel and allow you to pull a super sharp turn and basically ease your ability to turn around and navigate tight trails. I'm gonna try that other trail. Bear with me. I'm trying to do all this while reading a shady GPS. $1942. Whoop. That didn't sound good. So hopefully, when I take this, I'm going to take a right turn here. And then there's AVS. That stands for Active Variable Suspension, and this is a big one. It's not coming to the Landcruiser, coming to the US. It's been omitted. It's on the Landcruiser 300 in the world market. AVS is essentially electronic shock dampening or damping adjustment. So a lot of people hear that and they go, that's a gimmick, blah, 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 that doesn't matter. It's an awesome system that's been around since the 80s. There's electronic solenoids essentially inside all of your shock absorbers, and depending on what's going on with the MTS, what's going on with the ECU, or if you command it to be in comfort mode or sport mode or a normal mode, it will change the damping characteristics of the shock. It's not a Mickey Mouse gimmick system. When you hit the button, there's actually a valve that electronically closes and restricts the flow of oil within your shocks to change how your shock reacts. Again, I know it's a broken record, but these are marginal things that add up to that Land Cruiser experience. That's gone now. And furthermore, according to reports, the Land Cruiser 300, when you put it in this auto MTS mode, which is going to be missing again on the new Land Cruiser coming to the USA, when you put it into that auto MTS mode, it's actually not just going to change your multi-terrain select mode automatically, it's actually going to change the shocks real time too. So that is gone. You won't get that function either. Whoop. That was a skid. Look at this. Okay, we're getting into some Jeep Trail stuff here. Now we're going up. This is not flat. This is not at all a straight road. 4-low first gear, bigger rocks, loose rocks. Let's try to do it. Ah! Excuse my drama, but it is shaking me around in here quite the bit. Oh man. So, as I was saying, this is exactly what people do with these cars in the world market, which is why I'm calling them the Jeep of the rest of the world, of the world market. Look at this flex. Look at that flex. That's a lot of going back and forth because the vehicle is flexing back and forth. But look at this. Now we're narrow. This is what I'm talking about. Look at this wall now to my right. We're like, this is barely a trail anymore. Mirrors are already pulled in. To some people, they'll listen to what I said and go, who in the world cares? The thing says Toyota on it. The thing says Land Cruiser. It's a Land Cruiser. And we may be splitting hairs here, and it may be completely subjective, and you may not disagree, or you may not agree with anything I'm saying. However, I will still repeat and repeat again that Land Cruiser is not really this leaps and bounds type of thing, but again, a collection of all this off-road and on-road stuff. You get the whole works, you get the whole bag of the latest technological advancements in suspension and drivetrain and components and even things that you think are a gimmick. And they're all thrown at you. When you combine all that together and you take your butt off-road, it is simply amazing. And you have to decide how much of that amazing is going to be missing from this new Land Cruiser. And if it is missing from this Land Cruiser, then what are you paying for when you get a Land Cruiser? Land Cruiser should equate to amazing. I think that's Lexus's logo or slogan, but Land Cruiser should equate to amazing, and many people will argue that there's simply too much stuff missing from the US spec Land Cruiser to live up to the quote Land Cruiser name and the quote Land Cruiser experience. The interior is something on the Land Cruiser Come to America is something a lot of people have complained about. And this is from people who saw it at the press release event and actually have sat inside. And the comments are simply that it's cheap, it's chintzy, it's plasticky. And if you look at the pictures, you tend to agree. They had to cut costs somewhere to get this thing in the American market, and the interior took a beating. Now, if you go, well, it's a Toyota, it should be bare bones and utilitarian, blah, 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 inside of a Land Cruiser, you gotta look inside the Land Cruiser 300 in the world market. Now, note, I'm not talking about the Lexus LX600. I'm talking about the flagship world market Land Cruiser 300. Inside of that thing is absolute Lexus quality, and that is always been the case for American spec Land Cruisers. So when the Land Cruiser 200 was here, when you got in that $100,000 or whatever they were selling at $80,000 Land Cruiser 200 series, even though it was a quote Toyota, you got yourself a Lexus interior. Everything inside of that thing was top tier, aka Lexus quality, right? So when you look in the Land Cruiser 300, even though it's gray and you may not like the color schemes, the fit and finish inside that thing is top notch. Now, what does that matter, right? You already know what I'm going to say. It's the Land Cruiser experience, that subjective top tier off-roading a Cadillac or whatever, off-roading this well-built, well-crafted, well-structured, divine, beautifully engineered, inside and out type of machine on and off-road. That's gone now. So you can clearly see the difference between the two interiors. Will that matter to you? Who knows? Will that matter to people? Who knows? But my point is that it's gone. And that was arguably what a Land Cruiser was and what it meant to have or drive or experience a Land Cruiser. So I've rambled enough, and remember, it's just for fun, it's just ramblings, it's just food for thought. Think about what you want when you buy a Land Cruiser. Do you want the Land Cruiser name, or do you want the Land Cruiser experience? If you want, in my opinion, the true Land Cruiser experience, wait for the Lexus GX 550. That literally is the Land Cruiser 300 series brought over here with the engine in its overtrail trim. Same engine, all the features except for the front locker and except for the rear seats that they omitted. I suspect if you wait long enough, Lexus in future year updates on the Lexus GX 550 will throw the back seats in as an option and put on the front locker in the Lexus GX 550 as a year update refresh. Everything I mentioned, everything else, all the features from the KDSS to the AVS and blah, 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 that's all in the GX 550. That is the true closest thing you can get to the American Land Cruiser experience. And that's the big takeaway here. That's the big philosophical rambling that I'm doing here that you're probably sick of already. But that's what I really honestly want to press through here. If you're not looking for that Land Cruiser experience and you're just a bare bones type of person, wait for the new Toyota 4Runner. Why would you wait for the new Toyota 4Runner? It's going to be even cheaper than the Land Cruiser, and best of all, it's Toyota's cash cow. The 4Runner is a cash cow. How do we know it's a cash cow? Because they got a formula that they hit gold on, which is they made the styling of the 4Runner and the past generation an absolute hit with Americans. That aggressive 4Runner look and all the different trim options where you can trim it as to a rear-wheel drive or the limited with the full-time four-wheel drive. You can, and anything else in between, TRD, blah, 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 blah. But the main thing of that 4Runner is the looks. I'll bet you when the new 4Runner is released, you're going to forget all about that Land Cruiser if you're the type that doesn't need that Land Cruiser experience. And you're more into that bare bones and you're more into the looks. I don't know what it looks like, but I guarantee you they're going to kill it in the looks department on that new upcoming 4Runner, which again is based on the same platform, this TNGAF platform that this new Land Cruiser is based on. So I'll reiterate that a Land Cruiser should be an experience, and if you want bare bones and you don't even know or care what the heck off-road features I just talked about, wait for the new 4Runner. That's going to be your best value overall. All right, I've rambled enough. If you're still here, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a great, great day.